here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have a new video in my 10 facts about Jewish holiday series, and this one is 10 facts about Shabbat. If you've missed any of the other videos in this series, I will link them down below, and if you want to learn more about Shabbat from my channel, I will link all my playlists down below. I have a ton of videos for you guys. If you're new here, welcome. My name's Marian, and I make videos about being a mom and being a Jewish mom. I would love it if you subscribed, and if you like this video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. So let's start with number one. The first fact about Shabbat is that it occurs every single week. I don't know why it took me to my 33rd year in life to really let that fact sink in. I think it was because I was postpartum, so, you know, emotional, hormonal, and I was like, I just want to skip Shabbat this week. It was like too much. I was overwhelmed. I didn't feel like lighting the candles, and I just had this kind of awe-like moment that I realized that Shabbat is every single week. There's no break. And if you're Shabbat observant, you'll celebrate Shabbat every single Friday night and Saturday for your entire life. I don't know why, but if you really let that sink in, it's kind of mind-blowing. There's no time off for Shabbat. But what's so unique about this holiday is that it doesn't take a break. Not for Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Hanukkah, funerals, sitting Shiva, all of those, a wedding, our second place to Shabbat. Shabbat always comes first. Shabbat is always observed above all else. Which brings me to my second fact about Shabbat, which is that you're only allowed to break the rules of the Sabbath for one thing and one thing only, and that is pikuach nefesh, which means to preserve a life or a soul. So if it's a life-threatening emergency, then yes, you can break the Shabbat. So for example, if you need an ambulance to get to the hospital, you can drive on Shabbat. If you're about to give birth, doctors can use medical equipment on Shabbat. Everything for saving a life takes precedence. Number three, there's a lot you can't do on Shabbat. Shabbat has a lot of rules and regulations about what cannot be done on Shabbat, and primarily it involves working. So any sort of activity that is centered around work, whether it's writing, spending money, business planning, caring, anything that's that sort of arduous, financially motivated task is forbidden. And this includes lighting a fire, which has translated in the modern world to using electricity. So a religious, Sabbath observant Jew will not spend any money on Shabbat, and they will not watch TV on Shabbat. There's a lot they won't do. But of course, people have figured out ways to still live a semi-normal life during the Shabbat experience. So they'll do things like turn on lights they know they're going to need during the Shabbat before the Shabbat starts. They'll even tear up toilet paper because you're not supposed to tear on Shabbat. So they'll do it beforehand so that it's ready to go on Shabbat. My fourth fact for you is that the Shabbat observance is actually one of the 10 commandments. So it is a huge mitzvah in Judaism to keep the Shabbat. It's right there in the Big 10. My fifth fact for you guys is that we hear about the mitzvah and commandment to keep the Shabbat in the 10 commandments and how important it is. But later on in the Torah, we're also told to remember the Shabbat. So this exact line of Shamor et HaShabbat is repeated later on in the Torah with a different word at the beginning, is Zachor et HaShabbat. In my recent video where I got to show you guys a Torah in real life, my rabbi talked about this duality and these two words that are talked about in how we celebrate and honor the Shabbat. So definitely check out that video. I'll link it down below to hear more about that. But there's a lot of this symbolism within Jewish texts and Jewish learning about this doubleness in Shabbat. Which brings me to my sixth fact, which is that it's said that on Shabbat we receive a second soul, and we're that much closer to God. We're on that much of a holier spiritual plane during these 25 hours, and it truly is this miraculous day in the week. Speaking of the week, my Shabbat fact number 7 is that in the Hebrew calendar, the way the days are counted, Shabbat, or Saturday for us, is actually the 7th day of the week. So Yom Rishon, which is the first day of the week in Israel and in the Hebrew way of counting the calendar, is Sunday for us. So that's the first day of the week. And then the last day is Shabbat, Saturday. So in Israel, the weeks actually begin on a Sunday. That's their Monday. It's kind of confusing, but it's kind of cool because it honors and represents the way the Torah explains the story of creation, and that God created the world in 6 days, and on the 7th day he rested. So the Hebrew calendar week ends with that 7th day of rest, Shabbat. My 8th fact is, what do people actually do on Shabbat? I wanted to walk you guys through a typical day in a religious observant household for Shabbat. So there's a ton of preparation to get ready for Shabbat because you can't do a lot on Shabbat, like cooking, cleaning, etc. But once everything is ready, the peacefulness and love of Shabbat is brought in, the joy of Shabbat, and the Shabbat experience usually begins, especially for the men, with going to synagogue and participating in the Friday night service. It's a really beautiful one. And this service, which is called Kabbalat Shabbat, has all these beautiful melodies and really sets the mood for the rest of the night and the day. Then everyone comes home and enjoys a beautiful Sabbath meal, including challah and wine and all delicious foods. Then the next morning, Saturday morning, families usually go to synagogue, and it's sort of a longer service. They read the Torah. It can last for hours. There might be a bar bat mitzvah happening that day, and then people often will have lunch in the synagogue. It's very common for synagogues to serve lunch after services. So they'll usually start around 8, 9 in the morning and last all the way till noon, when then lunch is served. Then in the afternoon, it's very common to take a nap, to relax, to read a book. Often synagogues will have lectures or participatory discussions with the rabbi, so stuff to kind of casually relax in the Shabbat afternoon. But it's all about rest and relaxation. Kids will play, of course, but it's a very chilled time. My 9th fact for you guys is that there are some really important spiritual and ritualistic objects on Shabbat, like the candlesticks and the Kiddush cup. These are items that will be handed down from generation to generation. You'll hear miraculous stories of candlesticks that crossed the ocean from Europe and were saved during the Holocaust and all of these things, because these items are so significant and special and often very expensive and valuable to a family. So it's very common to receive them as gifts for your wedding or your bar bat mitzvah and to pass them down from one generation to the next. And finally, I have my 10th fact for you, which I've saved the most important one to me for last, which is that the whole essence of Shabbat is that God reminds us to take a break. So when you're caught up in the hectic work week and it feels like some sort of failing when you need to take a rest, the whole point of Shabbat is that God says that it's human to rest. So unlike animals who just continue about their day every single day and just go, 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 it's the very essence of humanity to need to rest and to need to pause and reflect and get ready and get set for the next week ahead. So while initially it may seem like a fault of being human, in fact, it's the whole beautiful essence of being human, is the need to rest and take a break. So with that, I'll wish you a Shabbat Shalom. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you have more ideas for me on what I should make 10 facts about videos for you, definitely let me know in the comments. If you have any more questions about Shabbat, let me know as well. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye!